dating advice. Shit dating advice that makes me angry. It does make me angry when I hear this stuff, right? When clients come to me and they're like, this is what I'm following, this is what I'm doing, and this is why. It kind of just gets my nerves because there's so much bad dating advice out there that lacks nuance and specificity, and people take it on as it's gospel. So this is, this is the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers, and, I do these mini episodes on the weekend to talk about things that really come up in the work that I've been doing. This has come up a few times over the last couple of months. I did an Instagram post about this and it was very, very popular. People really enjoyed it. And I'm going to go into a bit more depth here. And this is also, I'm going to tell you about a program I've got coming up. It's not even a program coming up. It's for sale. You can just click down below and you can buy it. It's a dating program for men, Men's Dating Accelerator. It is a collection of 4 different workshops that are, really jam-packed with information that really make a difference to the sort of man who wants to date, to meet someone to be with, to find a partner, to find a long-term partner. We talk about getting out and being more social, right? The most important thing, people are not social enough, and how to do that. It's very specific about how to do it in a way to build up your social confidence. Then we go into beliefs, because ultimately most of you, what you're struggling with is really at its core, these limiting beliefs about yourself. So how you can dissolve those, and there's practices and there's written practices and there's things to listen to about how to dissolve those. And then we really get into the communication piece, because this is where men really, really are bad, right? Communicating feelings and emotions and vulnerability and openness and revealing who they are, while also standing in this kind of masculine core of strength and dynamism and presence. And then lastly, I finish up with a session about leadership, how to talk about sex when you're dating somebody and so forth. So if you want interested in that, just dive down below and grab the link there to Men's Dating Accelerator, MDA, as I prefer to call it. So these 8 bits of dating advice. Let me kick off with the first one. If they wanted to, they would, right? This comes up a lot for people. If they wanted to, they would. If he really cared about me, he'd reply to my message. If he was really into me, he'd want to be with me, right? If she was really into me, she would call me back, or she would, move past her fears and be with me. No, this is bollocks, right? It is simplified. Because ultimately, and I've worked with so many people, hundreds of men now, right? Directly, one-to-one. And so many of these men, they want to do things, they want to go and make $1 million, right? Or they want to be really courageous and brave and bold, right? They want to protect women and they want to be great men. But what gets in the way? Fear and trauma, pain, wounding, attachment patterns. They want to cognitively, but when it comes to it, body stops them. Fear, anxiety, worry, even the stories are that they shouldn't do it. So it isn't that simple. Second piece, don't chase. A man should never chase a woman, right? A lot of guys say this, especially young men, I find, especially these kind of red pill dudes, and these dudes telling you be a Sigma man, you should be independent and you shouldn't need anybody. It doesn't work, right? Because what happens is guys go, I'm not going to chase a woman, and they go and be the opposite, because we live in this very binary way of thinking, right? And you might be listening to this with these binary ears. Oh, if I don't do that, if I shouldn't do that thing, then I should never do that thing, right? But then that just makes you really passive, right? And I think a lot of guys that say this, oh, you should never chase a woman, what they're really saying is that I just don't want to ever be hurt. I don't want to be hurt. So if I don't chase, I can never be hurt, which is untrue. You can still be hurt if you're not chasing, right? But it creates passivity. And one thing women are not attracted to is passivity. Right? Is you being passive. Passive men are not attractive. Ultimately, really, really clear. The statistics show it. Like when we look at things like wealth and status through dating, which a lot of men think is the most important things. Ultimately, one of the things about wealth and status is not all of those guys, but men who generate opportunities and access to resources is because they've generated it themselves. Like, yeah, there's a small number that, they've just been landed on their plate. But a lot of people have created through hard work and passion and deliberate action. And that's the thing that's attractive, right? Little nugget in there about what's attractive to women. Another one, number 3, I think this is, when you know. Meaning when you meet someone that you're into, you're going to know this is the one. Bullshit. I call bullshit on this one because I've worked with so many men who have gone, I'll know when I know. So I'm just waiting for that feeling. And I'm like, well, what is that feeling? What does that feel like? What is this knowing feeling that someone's the one? Well, they're like, people have told me, you just know. I also call BS on a lot of people who say, when I met the right person, I just knew. Because I always want to know, and I ask this question to people, is like, okay, so did you ever have that feeling before? Did you ever have that feeling before? Like, oh, I know this is the one for me. And some of them sheepishly say no. And some of them admitted to me, yeah, actually, yeah, I felt that a few times before I met my partner. And the reason I say this is because we love to retrospectively have a beautiful story of a connection. You know, I met Orsa, we've been together for what, 6 years now. We've got Bjorn. Did I know when I first met her? No. You know, she was just this nice blonde Swedish woman that I happened to talk to in Liverpool Street. And I wasn't sure what, you know, I didn't know anything. It took me months to know that this was someone I really want to be with long term. It probably took me another, you know, year or so to even know someone I want to kind of spend my life with, right? So you don't know. I think it's this kind of dysfunctional way of being because we're always trying to make sure we can be sure, right? And after it stops us from ever being with someone when we have doubt. And doubt is a very normal thing when you're making a big decision, right? So it's important to realize you don't always know when you know. What's this one? 4, 5? I don't know. You're going to follow them. Don't ever settle. Again, this settling thing is a really problematic thing because that line of where settling is, like, where do we go from meeting someone we deserve or just starting at the top, we're punching above our weight, right? I know some people, I'm not a fan of that phrase, but I really do see it, not just in looks, but just in personality and kind of well-roundedness of someone. Sometimes we're punching above our weight. And then there's kind of like that zone where we're getting what we deserve. And then we're kind of settling, and then we're really settling really badly. But the problem with this is that if you have an overinflated idea of your dating value or your relational capacity, your relational value, you're going to put yourself way up on the pedestal where you don't really deserve to be. And I see this a lot in men and women. You know, they think they got all the communication and they're like, you know, I've got a lot to give, and they live at their mum's house, got no job. And in a relational sense, you ain't got much to give. Let's be honest. Or they're like, you know, I'm late 40s. I've got a lot to give. And it's like, you're overweight. You're boring. You don't do much of your life, right? You don't have much relational experience. You can't create beautiful experience of women, but you want these like model standard women. And this is something, this is harsh truth, right? Harsh truth. Like, truth be told, I don't think settling's a bad thing. Most of the people I know are in really happy, long marriages. People who've got in relationship in their kind of mid-20s. A lot of them, if you looked at them at that point, you'd have gone, oh, you're settling a bit there. But what they saw was they saw attributes and talents in that person that maybe other people didn't see. And now they're in beautiful relationships. They're, you know, high flyers, or they have really a great relationship with great family, great values that they work together. Because often when we say we shouldn't settle, we're looking at very superficial things, you know, attractiveness, maybe even sometimes finances. And we don't see the deeper thing like kindness, commitment, effort, you know, consistency, right? So I don't think settling's bad. Like, finding someone who is good enough and is in it with you for the long haul is a great way to start a relationship, right? Most of the people who are in very secure attachment, they don't keep looking for better. They look for someone who's good enough, who meets the needs that they want and is going to have the capacity to create a great relationship in the future. Next bit of shit dating advice. Be yourself. Now, in essence, this is true, right? It's actually probably one of the few that's on there is like kind of true. The problem with it is that for most people, that self, who they are, who they think they are, who they experience them to be, is fearful, overthinking, reactive, drama-filled, like anxious, worried, filled with limiting beliefs about not being good enough, not being attractive enough, and so forth. So the problem is that self, you don't want to put that self on the plate and go, hey, how are you doing tonight? I feel really insecure because, you know, I don't really like being around people. It makes me really uncomfortable. I don't really have any hobbies because, you know, I'm really scared to kind of go out and do anything with anybody because I'm scared of germs, or, you know, I just think everyone's going to think I'm not good enough, so I don't bother. Like, that self isn't going to be attractive to people because, you know, as we know, confidence, especially for women, is really attractive. That's why I do things like the Men's Dating Accelerator, MDA, because if we don't fix some of that core stuff, we don't bring out the self that's underneath the fear, the worry, the anxiety, the drama, the trauma, if we don't bring out that self, we're just going to create relationships that are dysfunctional or just not enjoyable, right? Ultimately. So the thing is that actually the self is this beautiful, authentic self that where we're innocent, we're open, we are courageous, we're brave, we're loving, we're open-hearted, we're fierce with our love, we're fun, we're playful. And what stops that self is the fear, the worry, the anxiety, and all the stuff that gets layered on through our lifetime, through our experiences, negative experiences and stories. And that's the self that's meant to come through. That's the self that people are saying you need to be. But if you don't know how to do that, then you're just going to show up with the kind of pain and fear-laden self, right? And that's the self that isn't necessarily attractive to people, isn't necessarily good at connecting with people, isn't necessarily open, loving, Sometimes it's cruel and unkind even because you're so fearful. Next one, next bit of shit dating advice. I've made some notes, but I haven't numbered them. This is the one that annoys me, right? If you have any doubts about being with someone or they have any doubts about you, it's the wrong person. If you have any doubts about being with someone or someone has doubts about you, it's the wrong person. Hands up. Have you ever made a big life decision and had zero doubt? Like zero doubt, zero doubt in the mind at all. No thoughts of doubt, no second thinking like, oh, maybe this other decision should be better. Very few people. And if you put your hand up, I think you're lying. Because doubt is a perfectly healthy human response and feeling and emotion, right? Because we have a big decision and we kind of think about the different permutations and impacts, right? It's probably a sign of, high intelligence, doubt. I know cynicism is, right? It's very healthy to have doubt. And I work with a lot of men that have a lot of doubt, and working with how they relate to that doubt is a really, really powerful thing. Because if we relate to the doubt as like, oh, if I have these thoughts, that means that the thing I'm about to do is wrong, then you're going to make a lot of decisions. You're not going to really expand yourself in life, because doubt is a very normal experience to have if you're doing something that feels a bit stretchy, it feels a bit uncomfortable, right? What's the next one? Do your healing before you get into a relationship. Now, I understand the idea behind this, right? And this is one of those ones where there's a spectrum. If you do zero healing before you get in a relationship, you can be a horrible person to be with, right? Depending on your kind of imprint, what you've generationally picked up and what you've done, what's been happened to you in your own life and what the things that you've done to kind of create pain and wounding and trauma, right? But you don't have to be completely healed to find a relationship that's kind and loving. Most people are, they're not healed in a relationship. They do a lot of healing in relationship. Relationship is a place where we do a lot of healing, whether that's romantic relationships, friendships, even casual relationships can be really healing in a way, right? It's a place where you get activated and your wound gets poked and prodded because it's that love, right? It prods it. And that's actually where you do the work in real time. And that's something to remember as well, right? So if you're kind of on this healing journey of like, I need to be completely healed before I get into a relationship, you're not going to get in a relationship until you're dead or afterwards, because, you're never going to be completely healed. I think it's just the nature of it. I think it's like an onion skin. We get to the core parts of it. This is the last one, last bit of dating advice. You need to cut off anyone that isn't fully available. Now, I understand this one, but the word available or emotionally available means different things to different people, right? It means different things to different people. And availability even can mean different things. Like I might want a relationship, but I don't want a relationship with someone here. And does that make me emotionally unavailable? It just means that I don't want a relationship with someone. I've heard this before with clients. You don't have to cut everybody off, right? Who isn't exactly what they want to be. Because sometimes that person who's not available to start with just takes a little bit of time to open up, right? They just take a little bit of time, and they might tell you, right? They might not be emotionally available straight away. They might just take a bit of time. Or it could be that someone's just come out of a really difficult breakup and they just need some space and they need like some time to breathe before they get into something committed. And it might be a case of like, hey, well, I'm really looking for this thing. Like, we can stay friends, and I'll, you could, but not in the hope that they have to, you're going to persuade them. That's the key here. It's not hanging hope on these sorts of things, but you don't have to cut off everybody who isn't available, right? In for the version of what relationship means to you. So what you probably noticed in what I'm saying is the key to all these things is these dating advice. They might seem like they make sense, but the problem is they lack nuance, right? They lack that detail of like, oh, who is this person, right? Like, I'll give you an example, and I've said this, a lot of men do really need to be more vulnerable to create connection in their lives, right? So pretty blanket piece of advice. If I said all men need to be more vulnerable to create connection, there's definitely a subset of men who do not need to be more vulnerable, because their vulnerability to them is kind of what we call trauma dumping, like meeting someone on a first date and like dropping all their life's trauma, all the pain they've had, and like going into detail, and they're just too much. Yeah, I said it. Sometimes we are just too much. We're giving someone too much information early on, too much, too fast, right? Too much, too fast. But the thing is that someone who is like that, hearing that advice of being more vulnerable, they feel good about it. They're like, yeah, of course, because their worldview is of like just spilling everything out already. So that they let them double down and not have to be uncomfortable and change anything. Whereas if you had someone who, a lot of the men that I often work with, right, very numb emotionally, haven't felt anything much, feeling this like they're always in this like narrow lane of like okayness, right? If someone like that you say to be vulnerable, they're going to reject that advice straight away, right? Because it disagrees with their worldview. So they're not going to want to take it on. Because ultimately we gravitate towards dating advice and advice in general that matches what we already think and makes us feel comfortable. And that's a huge problem in dating, because it doesn't help you evolve. It just keeps you stagnated in where you are already and blaming outwards, right? Because you're looking for a reason why it's not working, and you blame other people, women, feminism, the economy, like all these things, right? So the key is nuance, and also being willing to feel uncomfortable by the things you do. I think a lot of us really have come into an age where we just want to be really comfortable, especially in dating, especially in relationships. And as soon as it gets uncomfortable in dating, I'm having lots of emotions and there's an uncertainty. I'm just going to, leave this person, or it must be wrong. But actually, relationships, dating, it should be uncomfortable, because it's a really meaningful aspect to our lives. So that's my 17-minute rant. But truthfully, these are really important things to nuance, right? Perspective and nuance are so important when it comes to dating advice and dating, taking what you're taking. I try to be really nuanced in my stuff, but ultimately the way the internet has evolved is people don't always give you nuance, because that doesn't get clicks. My podcast could really do a lot better if I was just a bit more sensational about things. But it's not it's not my path. I want to be of more like potent use to people. So if you're wanting to do something about your dating life, you're a man, if the program's open to women as well, if you want to purchase it, and you're wanting to be more open, more able to communicate, more resilient against rejection. That's something we really talk about in there, about rejection and dealing with rejection. If you want to be able to communicate better, because communication is just like the 90% of dating is really be able to communicate, which is hearing, listening, speaking, expressing, bringing fun and playfulness, being able to create beautiful experiences with a woman because you've been paying attention to what she's saying, right? And you're also resilient to, if she talks about her ex, you don't lose yourself in panic and fear and comparison. You can sit and be like, oh yeah, cool, man, she's about her ex. And you might ask questions from a grounded, calm place instead of spiraling in the mind. Because I've got practices to help you, especially with the overthinking and so forth in there. And it's a bargain price at the moment, right? The program. It's £49. It's self-service. You watch it in your own time. It's all videos, it's all up online in a course and so forth. So if you're interested in purchasing that, which I think you really should be, because the price isn't going to stay that cheap for long, because it should be at £149, right? And it was £300 when I ran it live. You just go down to the bottom and click and purchase. But yeah, tell me in the comments, what are some other like shitty bits of dating advice that you often hear like spouted at men and women? I'd love to know. Ciao, ciao.